for 1. The excretory organ in insects is the A. Kidney, B. Mammalian tubule, C. Phlegm cell, D. Nephridium. Now, for us to be able to appreciate this question very well, first of all, we need to know about the types of excretory systems for the various organisms. And as a matter of reference, I'm going to write types of excretory systems for various organisms. So now I'm going to take out the first one. The first major type of excretory system is what we call the contractile vacuole. The contractile vacuoles, and the type of organism that use this is amoeba. Now I'm going to look at the second type of excretory system, which is one of the options up, and that is the phlegm cell. And this phlegm cell is used by organisms, or the organism known as flatworm. Now I'm going to look at another group of excretory systems known as Mammalian tubules. Mammalian tubules. And this Mammalian tubule is used by insects. And finally, I'm going to look at another excretory system or organ known as kidney. And this kidney is used by human beings, mammals, human beings. And also, we also have another excretory system that I have to mention before I'm done, and that is Nephridium, or you call it Nephridia, and it is used by earthworms. Earthworms. So, for clarity, this is earthworms. So now we have the excretory organs. These are the excretory organs, and these are the organisms that use them. So from this list, you can simply see that the excretory organ for insects is Mammalian tubule, option number B, because you can see it here. Mammalian tubule is used by insects. So Mammalian tubule is the excretory organ for insects. Phlegm cell is the excretory organ for flatworm. Nephridium is the excretory organ for earthworm. And kidney is the excretory organ for human. That is what me and you use as our excretory organ. So the right option for the answer is Mammalian tubule, which is the excretory organ for insects. Thank you. Let's look at this JAMB past question, Biology 2018, question number 2. Cold-blooded animals are referred to as A. Poikilothermic, B. Homothermic, C. Polythermic, D. Homeostatic. Now, for us to be able to appreciate this question very well, we need to define the following terms as stated in the options. So number one, let's look at what the term poikilothermic means. Now, poikilothermic is referred to as the quality or state of being cold-blooded. So that is what poikilothermic is, and it is usually found in animals such as reptiles and amphibians. So you find out that the reptiles and the amphibians are poikilothermic animals, where their temperatures vary with the changes in temperature of the surrounding. So we have their temperature varying with the temperature or the changes in the surroundings. This is due to absence of mechanisms such as presence of fur or hair, as in other animals. So cold-blooded animals are actually poikilothermic. So with that, we'll see that option A is already the answer to this problem. So the word cold-blooded has a lot of things to do with poikilothermic. So that is another word for cold-blooded, poikilothermic. And the animals that are referred to as being cold-blooded or poikilothermic are the reptiles and the amphibians. Thank you. Let's look at these JAMB past questions, Biology 2018. Question number 3. Long neck in giraffe is used to illustrate the theory of A, use and disuse, B, origin of species, 3C, origin of life, D, natural selection. Now, for us to appreciate this, let's look at what the theory of use and disuse states. Let's look at this very important theory known as the theory of use and disuse. This theory was postulated by Xylem, and the theory is of the opinion that this theory states that when a body part is used constantly, when a body part is used constantly, it becomes more developed. When a body part is used constantly, it becomes more developed and efficient. So when you continue to use a part of a body or a body part constantly every time, that very part is going to become more developed and more efficient, while those that are not used become less efficient, while those that are not used, while those body parts that are not used becomes less efficient. You see that? And small, they become both less efficient and small, but the part that you use become more developed and more efficient. So these developed traits are then passed on to the organism. So when these developed traits and efficiency are then passed on to their offspring, that's the organism's offspring. he then used, so this was actually the theory that the postulant used the giraffe as an example, stating that ancestors of giraffe had short neck. However, because they had to stretch their necks to reach for leaves on trees, the necks got longer, and this was passed to their offspring as a trait. So you can see this is actually why the giraffes have long neck, because their ancestors, like this is a giraffe, and this giraffe is reaching for leaves on trees. These are leaves on trees because for them to survive they have to eat. So because the ancestor of the giraffe, this is the ancestor of this giraffe, they continue to stretch their neck in order to get these leaves. So that now made the neck of giraffes to be very long, and that is why when you see a giraffe, you find out that the neck is very long. This is the long neck of the giraffe, the offspring, whereas the ancestor had short neck, but they continue to stretch their neck in order for them to feed on leaves that are up here on the trees. So after some time, their neck become well developed and very efficient because they are being constantly used. So the trait of this long neck is then passed to the offspring, and that's why we have the giraffes to have long neck. So the answer to this is option A, use and disuse. The long neck in giraffe is used to illustrate the theory of use and disuse, because constant using of a particular body part makes it to be very well developed and more efficient. And that is how we come about this. And that is why option A is the answer. Thank you. Let's look at these JAMB past questions, Biology 2018. Question number 4. At fertilization, A, one chromosome from the male joins another from the female. B, one gene from the male combines with another from the female. C, the male nucleus fuses with the female nucleus. D, one set of chromosome combines with another set from the female. So what actually happens during fertilization? We all know that fertilization is what happens when there is this fusion of the nucleus from the male with that of the female. But this fertilization on the surface, that is what it is. But in details, we know that fertilization is what occurs when there is fusion of chromosomes into haploid gametes. So fertilization is actually what occurs when there is fusion of chromosomes into haploid gametes, talking about the sperm cell and the egg from the female. So we're talking about the male and female gametes. So when there is the fusion of these to produce a diploid, that is 2N zygotes. So whenever you have the production of zygotes by the fusion of chromosomes into haploid gametes, that is the gamete from the male and the female, to form a diploid zygote, we have what we call fertilization. That is what fertilization is all about. But on the surface, you can say that fertilization is the fusion of the male nucleus and the female nucleus. So what part of this nucleus are actually fusing? It is actually the chromosomes of the two haploid gametes from the male and female to produce a diploid zygote. So that is what happens. Now, so the option that is very close to this is C. Why? Because if you look at this, you also have chromosome. But here we're talking about one chromosome. One chromosome is not what does the fusion, so it cannot be one. This alone takes this out. Now for the second one gene from the male. When you're talking about gene, you're talking about hereditary. It's not actually reproduction as we are supposed to do in fertilization. Now this deal says one set of chromosome combines with another set from female. One set of chromosome from where? Is it from male or female? So you can see that this statement is not complete. So D cannot be the answer, B cannot be, A cannot be. But option number C is the answer to the problem. Thank you. Let's look at this question number 5 for JAMB Past Questions Biology 2018. Which of the following is an organ? A. Guard cell. B. Liver. C. Xylem bundle. D. Blood. Now, in order for us to be able to appreciate this question very well, we need to know the various levels of specialization or various levels of organization of the cell or organisms. Levels of organization. And in these levels of organization, we have the smallest is the cell. And when you have a group of cells coming together, they form what we call tissue. And if you have a group of tissue performing the same function coming together, they form what we call organ. Then if you have a group of organs coming together that perform similar or coming together to achieve something, we'll call it system. So system is the highest level of organization, whereas cell is the lowest level of organization. So you can see that the things you see in our body or in the body of organisms, they can fall under cell, tissue, organ, or system. When you're talking about system, you're talking about things like the circulatory system, where you have plenty of organs coming together to make it work. You have things like excretory system, plenty of organs coming together, reproductory system, plenty of organs coming together, plenty other system, transport system. I think transport is all about the circulatory system as well. Now, when you're talking about organ, you're talking about things like the liver. You know what the liver does in the body. Talking about things like the kidney. That's the excretory organ for mammals. Now, when you're talking about cells, you're talking about the red blood cells, the white blood cells. That's what we talk about here. But when you talk about tissue, you talk about blood cells coming together to form a tissue. So for cells, you can also have white blood cells. Then you talk about the xylem tissues in plants. So these are the various classification of the levels of organization. So from this, you can easily see that a liver is an organ. So that makes option B the right answer. Gut cell, we're talking about cells. Xylem, we're talking about tissue. Blood cells, like the white blood cell, red blood cell, they are cells. So the right option for the answer is B. Thank you. Hello, welcome. Let's look at this JAMB Past Questions Biology 2018. Question number 6. What is the function of trichocyst in Paramecium? A. Movement. B. Defense. C. Excretion. D. Reproduction. Now, for us to be able to appreciate this question very well, we need to know what a paramecium is. Paramecium is that organisms that has this shape. That is the shape of a paramecium. So on the body of the paramecium we have things like this. And these are called cilia. And this cilia is used for movement. Cilia is used for movement and getting food. Both movement and getting food to the paramecium. Now, we also have what we call the anal pores, and this anal pore is used for excretion. Anal pore is used for excretion. Then inside here we have what we call the micronucleus, and the bigger ones known as macronucleus. The micronucleus is used for reproduction through a process known as meiosis, as is division. So the part that is used for reproduction is micronucleus. Now we also have what we call a spindle-like body. We also have spindle-like body inside called trichosis. And these trichosis are actually spindle-like bodies filled with dense refractive fluid containing swelled substances, and they are actually used for defense. The trichocysts are used for defense. So those are the parts of the paramecium. Also important to note in the paramecium is what we call the contractile vacuole. The contractile vacuole. This is also used for excretion, but it's actually for excreting excess water. Use it to remove excess water. So from this we can see that the answer is B. The trichocyst is actually for defense. That is what the trichocyst does. The trichocyst, this is the trichocyst, it is used for defense. And that makes B the answer. For movement, it's used the cilia; for excretion, the anal pore; and the contractile vacuole; for reproduction, the micronucleus. So B is the right answer. And this is the diagram of a paramecium. It's an eukaryote. So this is diagram showing the various parts and functions. These are the parts of the function. Very important to note is also this boundary is known as the pellicle. This pellicle is what actually covers the body and gives it its shape. So pellicle gives the paramecium its shape. Yes, so B is the answer because trichosis is actually used for defense. Thank you. Let's look at this JAMB past questions, Biology 2018. Question number 7. An increase in air pressure in the lungs is due to the A. Increase in the volume of the thoracic cavity, B. Upward movement of the rib, C. Relaxation of the diaphragm, D. Contraction of the intercostal muscles. Now, for us to be able to understand this question and appreciate it very well, we need to know the mechanism of breathing. We need to understand the mechanism of breathing, which is actually what is happening for us to have all these. And this is the mechanism of breathing in human beings, in man, and many other mammals. And basically, it involves inhalation and exhalation. That's what breathing is all about in human being. Inhalation and exhalation. That's breathing in and breathing out of air. Inhalation means breathing in, exhalation means breathing out. Now we have that during inhalation, what actually happens during inhalation? During inhalation, air is taken in into the lungs. That's what happens during inhalation. Air is taken in into the lungs. Now, when the air is taken in, when this air is taken in, the lungs intercostal, the lungs intercostal muscles contract. That's what happened. The lungs intercostal muscles contract. You understand? So whenever there is inhalation, there is contraction of the lungs intercostal muscle. This option D. That's what happens when there is inhalation. But we are not stopping there. We need to understand the full thing that happens during inhalation. So it contracts, the lungs contracts, and the chest cavity increases, and the chest cavity, which is also the thoracic cavity, increases. So this also happens when there is inhalation of air. Now, there is also an increase in air pressure of the lungs. There is also increase in air pressure of the lungs. There is increase in air pressure of the lungs. There is increase in air pressure of the lungs. And also, because of this increase in air pressure of the lungs, there is now relaxation of the diaphragm. Relaxation of the diaphragm. So the increase in air pressure and relaxation of diaphragm works together. So there is this relaxation of diaphragm. You understand? And it causes the increase in air pressure of the lungs. So that makes the answer to this problem. Now, to further explain this mechanism of breathing, now, as for exhalation, what happens is that the lung relaxes. You understand? In exhalation, the lung relaxes. That's what happens here. The lung relaxes in exhalation, and the chest cavity decreases. The opposite of what happens in this place. The chest cavity decreases, and the diaphragm contracts. Here, the diaphragm contracts, unlike in inhalation where the diaphragm relaxes. And there is decrease in lung pressure. There is also decrease in lung pressure. So most of these things happen in inhalation, but actually what causes the increase in pressure of the lung is due to the relaxation of the diaphragm, and that makes option C the right answer. Thank you. Let's look at this question number 8 for JAMB past questions biology 2018. An example of an endospermous seed is A. Cotton seed, B. Bean seed, C. Maize grain, D. Cashew nuts. Now, for us to be able to answer this correctly, we need to know what endospermous seeds are. So what are endospermous endospermous seeds. What are the endospermous seeds? Are seeds which possess endosperm. So all the seeds that possess endosperm, they are known as endospermous seeds, and they could be monocotyledons. So now, what are the endospermous seeds that we have from the option that we have? The maize grain is an endospermous seed. There are some that are known as non-endospermous seed as well. But the endospermous seeds, the seeds that have endosperm, the one that we have in the option here is maize grain. So that makes option C the right answer to this. And like I said, there are also non-endospermous seeds. For endospermous seeds, the example that we have here, the seed that has endosperm, is the maize grain. Thank you. Let's look at this question number 9 for JAMB Past Questions Biology 2018. The movement of the whole organism to an external stimulus is termed A. Tropism, B. A taxis, C. A nastic movement, D. A phototropic movement. Now, we already know what phototropic movement is towards light, nastic and tropism, but this taxis, or what we call taxism, is very, very important for us to explain in order for us to be able to appreciate this very well. So we say that taxism, or we call it tactic movement, is actually when a whole organism, when the whole of the organism, very, very important, it's not part of the organism, but when the whole of the organism moves directly towards, so whenever you have the organism moving directly towards or away, it's either they are moving towards or away from a stimulus. That is what we call taxism. The stimulus comes from a particular direction and the response of the organism is in relation to the stimulus. Such movement occurs in, so where can we see taxism? Example is, as we see in amoeba, these small microorganisms, when they want to respond, the whole of their body move. Unlike human being, where parts of the body move. We also have Paramecium. You can see it in Paramecium. You can also see it in F1. So these are where we can see these taxism movements or tactic. So A taxis is the answer because we're talking about the movement of the whole organism. Whenever we have the movement of the whole organism in response to stimulus, we call it taxism or a taxic movement. So option A is the answer to this. Thank you. Let's look at this JAMB Past Questions Biology 2018, question number 10. If a child can receive blood from all donors, he belongs to the blood group A, O, B, A, C, B, D, AB. So does he belong to blood group O, or A, or B, or AB? Now, for us to be able to understand this and appreciate it very well, we need to understand what universal donors are. Universal donors are those people with the blood group that they can donate to everybody. So, and that is blood group O. Anybody with blood group O can actually donate to anybody. Then we also have what we call universal receivers. That is the people with blood group that can receive from anybody, and that is AB. So from there you can see that this child can receive from all donors. He is a universal receiver. So the correct option is AB. Now, why is it like this? It is actually because group AB people possess plasma that contains neither antigen A or B. So it neither contains antibody for A or B. So because of that, the absence of this in the plasma of people with AB, they can actually receive blood from any donor. So had it been they says that this child can donate to anybody, no, it's a universal donor, it would have been O. But because of it can receive from everybody, then it is A. Thank you. Welcome. Let's look at this question number 11 for JAMB Past Question Biology 2018. Which of the following animals is cold-blooded? A. Cat. B. Lizard. C. Whale. D. Bird. Now, we said that cold-blooded animals or poikilothermic animals are those animals whose temperature varies according to the temperature of the environment. And we said that mostly the reptiles and amphibians are the cold-blooded animals. So as a matter of writing, we can say that cold-blooded animals, or another word for cold-blooded animal is poikilothermic animals. Poikilothermic animals are those animals whose temperature varies according to the temperature of the surrounding. So that's what we call cold-blooded animals. Animals with temperatures varying according to the temperatures of the surrounding. So the major examples of these are things like major examples of cold-blooded animals are things like lizards, snakes, crocodiles. So all these reptiles, they are cold-blooded animals, the reptiles. Then we'll also talk about animals like frogs, toads, toads and frogs. And these animals are known as amphibians. The amphibians are also cold-blooded animals. So with the examples given of cold-blooded animal, you can easily pick out that the right option is B, which is lizard. Examples of cold-blooded animal. Thank you. Hello, welcome. Let's look at these JAMB Past Questions Biology 2018. Question number 12. An example of radially symmetrical organism is A. Planaria, B. Hydra, C. Tapeworm, D. Roundworm. Now, in order for us to appreciate this question very well, we need to know what a radially symmetrical organism is. What does it mean for an organism to be radially symmetrical? Now, we can state that radial symmetry is actually when the body of an animal, whenever you have the body of an animal, or when the body of an animal can be cut along its axis in any plane, to give two identical halves. So whenever you can cut the body of an animal along its axis in any plane to give two identical halves, then you can say that that animal is radially symmetric. So what are the examples of animals that are radially symmetric? Examples of such animals are: number 1, Hydra; number 2, jellyfish, etc. So these are the two major radially symmetrical organisms, Hydra and jellyfish. So what do you say it's a radially symmetrical animal or organism? Organisms that when its body is cut along its axis in any given plane or in any plane, it can give two identical halves of such an organism. So Hydra is a very good example of a radially symmetrical animal, as can be seen from these two examples that I gave. So another one is also jellyfish. So the right answer for these is B, because Hydra is a radially symmetrical organism. And this is because a radial symmetry is actually when the body of an animal can be cut along its axis in any plane to give two identical halves. So good examples of radially symmetrical organisms are Hydra and jellyfish, and that makes option B the right answer for these. Thank you. Let's look at this JAMB pass question, Biology 2018, question number 13. Physiological adaptation to very dry conditions in animals demonstrates A. Xeromorphism, B. Hibernation, C. Estivation, D. Rejuvenation. Now, for us to be able to understand these very well, we need to note the definition of the various terms used here. So from what we have here, we can see the first term here is xeromorphism. This xeromorphism is frequently associated with the loss of leaves and their replacement with photosynthetic branches, such as cladophiles or thorns. So this has to do with loss of leaves. So this is actually associated with plants, mostly loss of leaves and their replacement. Though it is also done during dry conditions, mostly during dry conditions. Now we look at hibernation. Hibernation is actually dormancy of animal. This one has to do with animal. So it's a state of animal dormancy taking place around the winter period due to coldness. State of animal dormancy. So when we say dormancy, we mean when normal activity is not happening inside the body. There is no metabolic activity inside the body of the organism. So state of animal dormancy that happens mostly during winter, during cold conditions. Cold conditions. So it's good we take note when this happens. Then estivation is also state of dormancy or adaptation, but this time around during hot seasons. So state of animal dormancy, which is a form of adaptation that happens during summer or in very dry conditions for animal too. And you see that we are talking about animal here. So xeromorphism is not very close to what we are saying, though it happens in dry condition. But this estivation is the physiological adaptation to a very dry condition in animals. Then the animals we talk about, like animals like desert rattlesnake, they have such adaptation, estivation, desert rattlesnake. And you talk about scorpions too. Scorpions. Now rejuvenation is when something is recuperating, so it's not very close to this. So the right option is option C. A also happens in dry condition, but it's mostly for plants. Loss of leaf is a form of adaptation for them. But estivation is very close to the definition that we have here, that is physiological adaptation to a very dry condition in animal. Thank you. Welcome. Let's look at these JAMB past questions, Biology 2018, question number 14. A group of organisms of different species living in a particular area is described as A, colony, B, community, C, population, D, niche. Now these are ecological terms, and the right definition that falls in the option is B, community, and that is because, why is community the answer? Because from the definition of a community is made up of all the populations, because now you're talking about different organisms. So it's actually made up of all the populations of living organisms that exist together. That is what population is. In a particular habitat, particular area, that's what it means, in a particular habitat. Now, if you want an example, for an example now, a community on a rotten log. Rotten log is a habitat, it's a particular area. This very community living on a rotten log will now consist mainly of populations of, number one, decomposers. I'm giving you an example of a population. Example of decomposers are things like bacteria and fungi. I'm giving us an example of a community. So a community that lives in a particular area. This time around, the particular area is rotten log. So it will consist of which organism? Decomposers, example, bacteria and fungi. And number two sets of organisms that you can find in such a community is insects, example, termites and ants. You know, when you go to a log of wood, you will see all these termites and ants, bacteria and fungi. Then number three, you can also see lizards in a log of wood, and small birds. So you can see in this community of rotten log, as the particular place of habitat, we have the composers like bacteria, fungi, insects like termites and ants, lizards and small birds. You can see different organisms of different species living in a particular area. This particular area is the rotten log. So you can see that it fits into this definition of a community. And that is why option B is the right answer for this. Thank you. Hello, welcome. Let's look at these JAMB past questions, Biology 2018. Question number 15. A pollutant that is mostly associated with the acid rain is A. Nitrogen 4 oxide, B. Ozone, C. Fluorine, D. Carbon 4 oxide. Now, whenever you hear about acid rain, your mind should always go to nitrogen 4 oxide. Ozone, you're talking about the ozone layer that is being depleted while we are having more hot weather. There we have the ice caps being turned into going down because of the heat on the earth. Fluorine doesn't really cause acid rain as nitrogen 4 oxide does. Then carbon 4 oxide is what you get when you exhale or when carbon 2 oxide reacts with oxygen. But when you're talking about acid rain, you're talking about nitrogen 4 oxide. And how do you come about all this? Fossil fuels contain pollutants such as sulfur dioxide and nitrogen 4 oxide. These gases are poisonous and dissolved in moist air to form acids. When they are dissolved by rainwater, they give rise to acid rain. Acid rain reduces the growth of plants and damages their leaves. It also destroys metallic structures and plants and animal life. So you can also actually see this under ecological management. So under ecological management, we can see the effect of some gases. And these gas pollutants, the major two example is sulfur, very, very important. Sulfur dioxide, you need to know about it. And nitrogen 4 oxide. These are the two gas pollutants that can cause acid rain. So when you have these gases come together with rainwater, when they come together with rainwater, any of these two gases, then you have what we call acid rain. So that's how you get your acid rain. When gases like sulfur dioxide or nitrogen 4 oxide reacts or comes in contact with rainwater, we have acid rain. So this acid rain falls and causes a lot of problems, and that is why it is not good, and we need to reduce their emission. So the right answer here is nitrogen 4 oxide, because that is what causes acid rain together with sulfur dioxide. Thank you. Let's look at these JAMB past questions, Biology 2018, question number 16. The vitamin which is important in the formation of the retina pigment is A. Vitamin A, B. Vitamin B, C. Vitamin C, D. Vitamin D. Now, for us to be able to appreciate this very well, we need to note that the retina consists of photoreceptors called rods and cones. So these rods and cones are photoreceptors. And these photoreceptors are on the retina. Now, on these very photoreceptors, we have high sensitive pigments protein complex known as rhodopsin. So on these photoreceptors, we have pigment proton complex known as what? Rhodopsin. Very, very important. Now, the pigment part of this rhodopsin is made from vitamin A. So you actually get the pigment, this very pigment on the rhodopsin from vitamin A. And that is why lack of this very vitamin A results or causes night blindness. So you see, that very thing that helps in forming the pigment rhodopsin is vitamin A. And that makes option A the right answer. Vitamin A is actually the vitamin which is important in the formation of retinal pigment. So the retinal pigment rhodopsin is actually consisting of a pigment protein complex, which is actually helped in its formation is vitamin A. Now this rhodopsin is on the photoreceptors known as rods and cone in the retina. So that's why option A is the right answer. Thank you. Hello, welcome. Let's look at these JAMB past questions, Biology 2018. Question number 17. The hygrometer is used for measuring A. Relative humidity, B. Specific gravity, C. Rainfall, D. Salinity. Now, the hygrometer is actually used in measuring relative humidity. That is what you use hygrometer to measure. Now, what is this relative humidity? Relative humidity is actually a measure of the amount. Relative humidity is the measure of the amount of moisture. So whenever you measure the amount of moisture in the atmosphere, then you say you're measuring relative humidity. So that is what relative humidity is. And it can be measured using hygrometer. Measured using hygrometer. That's what you use in measuring relative humidity. Now, it is usually high in the hot, wet weather. So you have relative humidity to be high in hot, wet weather or hot, wet regions. That's where you get your relative humidity to be high. And it affects the rate at which evaporation takes place. So relative humidity affects the rate at which evaporation takes place. And you can measure it using hygrometer. That is the equipment used in measuring relative humidity. And that makes option A to be the right answer. Thank you. Let's look at these JAMB past questions, Biology 2018, question number 18. Double fertilization is a unique feature of A. Angiosperms, B. Bryophytes, C. Pteridophytes, D. Algae. So, which of these is associated with double fertilization? Now, before we talk about it, now, what is double fertilization? Double fertilization, what is it? Double fertilization is actually a complex fertilization mechanism of flowering plants. So it's the type of fertilization that happens for flowering plants, is complex. Now, how does it happen? And these flowering plants that we'll talk about, they are also known as angiosperms. So how does it happen? The process involves the joining of a female gametophyte. So when you have a female gametophyte joining together with two male gametes plus two male gametes, that is when we have double fertilization. So we have one female gametophyte joining together with two male gametes. We have double fertilization. So male gametes can also be called sperm. You understand? So this process actually begins with a pollen grain, when a pollen grain adheres to the stigma of the carpel. You understand? So that is how you have the pollen grain adhering to the stigma. Adhering to the what? Stigma of the carpel. That is how this process starts. So double fertilization is when we have one female gametophyte joining with two male gametes. And it actually happens in flowering plants, also known as angiosperms. So it's a special type of fertilization. So from this definition, you can see that double fertilization is a unique feature of what? Angiosperms. A. And that is the answer to the problem. Thank you. Welcome. Let's look at these JAMB past questions, Biology 2018. Question number 19. An organism which exhibits extracellular digestion is A. Spirogyra, B. Paramecium, C. Amoeba, D. Rhizopus. So which of the following exhibits extracellular digestion? Now, for us to understand this and put it in context, we need to first of all know what extracellular digestion is. So what is extracellular digestion, so that we can know which of the organism have it as a characteristic. So extracellular digestion is a process in which saprophytes saprobionts feed by secreting enzymes. So this process is done by secreting enzymes through the cell membrane. So whenever you have that kind of digestion that is done by secreting enzyme through cell membrane onto the food, we call it extracellular digestion. So that is how it happens. The enzymes catalyze the digestion of the food into molecules small enough to be taken up by passive diffusion, transport, or phagocytosis. You understand? So which are some of the example of animals or organisms that do this? The number one and the example in this option is what we would call rhizopus. So rhizopus undergo this type of digestion known as extracellular digestion, which actually involves secreting enzymes through the cell membranes onto the food in order for you to eat it. So when you do that, when you secrete these enzymes onto the food through the cell membrane, what does the enzyme do? It will do what? It will catalyze the digestion. That's what it will do. It will catalyze the digestion of the food. You understand? Into molecules, into very small molecules, molecules small enough to be diffused, small enough to undergo diffusion or passive diffusion or transport. into the organism. So small enough to diffuse. That's what you are supposed to put there. So that is what we call extracellular digestion, secreting of enzymes through the cell membranes onto the food in order for the enzyme to catalyze digestion of the food into smaller molecules, small enough to be taken up through passive digestion. An example of an animal that or organism that does this is rhizopus, and that's why D is the correct answer. Thank you. Hello, welcome. Let's look at this JAMB past question biology 2018. Question number 20. Circulation in a mammal is said to be double because A. It passes twice through the heart in a complete circuit. B. It moves in both arteries and veins. C. It circulates in both the heart and other organs. D. The heart contains auricles and ventricles. So why is it that people say that, or why is it that it is said that circulation in mammal is a double circulation, or is double? So why do you say that? Now, for us to put this in context, first of all, we need to understand that in mammals, the heart is four-chambered. We need to understand the process of circulation. Always know that the heart is four-chambered in mammal. And you know the heart is where the pumping of the blood takes place. So the heart is four-chambered. So the deoxygenated blood is pumped from the heart to the lungs. You understand? From the heart to the lungs, you pump the what? Deoxygenated blood. You understand? It's pumped from the heart to the lungs. That is the movement. There is pumping of the blood from the heart to the lungs of deoxygenated blood. Where gaseous exchange occurs in the lungs, here we have what we call gaseous exchange, because you want this deoxygenated blood to be oxygenated. So that happens in the lungs, oxygenation of the blood. So that's why it is pumped from the heart to the lungs, so that it can get oxygenated, because there is gaseous exchange occurring in the lungs. Now, oxygenated blood from the lungs. Then from these lungs now, you now have the oxygenated blood because it has been oxygenated there. So here now you now have oxygenated blood. So from the heart now, the oxygenated blood from the lungs, after going from the heart to the lungs and getting oxygenated, the oxygenated blood from the lungs is returned to the heart. So it is now returned back to the heart, from where it is pumped to other organs. So from the heart now, you pump it to the other organs and tissues, not just the organs, but other organs and tissues of the body. Now, oxygen is used up and the deoxygenated blood is then returned to the heart before it is sent to the lungs. So after going through the organs, it will now become deoxygenated again. So it becomes deoxygenated because the oxygen will also be taken out in these organs and tissues. So the blood now becomes deoxygenated blood, and it now has to go back to the heart again, so that the heart will send it to the lungs where there is gaseous exchange for it to get back oxygenated. So oxygen is used up and the deoxygenated blood is then returned to the heart. Before it is sent to the lungs, blood passes through the heart. So you have now that the blood passing always through the heart twice before it completes one circuit, because it goes to the lungs, then to the organs, then back to the lungs to get oxygenated again. So you have that it passes twice to the heart for complete circuit. So for complete circuit of oxygenation and deoxygenation, you have it passing through the heart two times. when it was going for oxygenation, and when it has gone round and is coming for deoxygenation. So that's why we call it double circulation, because it passes through the heart twice before you can have a complete circulation. So option A is the right answer for this, and that is why it is called double circulation. Option A is the right answer. Thank you. Let's look at this JAMB past questions biology for 2018. Question number 21. Mineral salts can be absorbed into the roots by A. Osmosis only, B. Osmosis and diffusion, C. Diffusion and active transport, D. Imbibition only. Now, for us to get this into perspective, we need to understand what we actually mean. Now you have a plant, and in the root system of the plant, we have it under the soil. So the soil has nutrients, mineral salts, which has to be absorbed into the roots to help the plants to grow very well. So the process of absorbing these nutrients or these mineral salts from the soil into the plant so that the plant can grow well, what phenomena, what process is it? Is it osmosis, is it diffusion and osmosis, or diffusion and active transport, or imbibition? Now naturally you know that when there is movement like this, we know there is diffusion, but considering that there are more minerals in the cell sap than in the soil, but there is still movement into the cell sap of mineral salts, then we'll talk about active transport. That's what explains that movement against the diffusion gradient. So there is both movement and active transportation to ensure that mineral salts move into the plant through its roots. So the answer for this is C. Thank you. Welcome. Let's look at these JAMB past questions biology 2018. Question number 22. In the egg of a bird, the embryo is located in the A. chalaza, B. yolk, C. albumen, D. embryo disc. So where is the embryo located? So we all know from the sexual reproductive system in birds that the embryo is located in the yolk. And why is it that it is in the yolk? So when you check out the sexual reproductive system of birds, now you find out that the embryo is actually located inside the yolk. And why is that so? Because the yolk provides food, mainly proteins and salts and water for the embryo. So it provides food. The yolk provides foods, and this food is actually mainly proteins and salts, and as well, apart from food, it also provides water. So that is what this yolk provides for the embryo, and that's why we say that the embryo is actually enclosed or is inside the yolk, so that the yolk can provide all these things for the embryo in order for it to continue growing into maturity before birth. Thank you. So welcome. Let's look at these JAMB past questions, Biology 2018, question number 23. In the root vascular system, the stele is directly surrounded by the A. Pericycle, B. Cortex, C. Endodermis, D. Parenchyma. Now, the root vascular system of plants has the stele, which is directly surrounded by the cortex. So when you have your diagram of the root vascular system, you understand, you're going to find out that the cortex is actually what surrounds the stele. So what is this stele? The stele consists of vascular tissues. So the stele actually consists of vascular tissues made up of alternate phloem and xylem. So that's what the stele is consisting of, and it is actually surrounded by the cortex. So it actually consists of vascular tissues that is made up of alternate phloem and xylem bundles arranged in rings. So, and that makes C the right answer to the problem. Thank you. Welcome. Let's look at these JAMB past questions, Biology 2018, question number 24. A plant tissue that carries water and mineral salts is the A. Xylem, B. Cortex, C. Phloem, D. Cambium. Now, for us to put this into perspective, we need to understand that the vascular system for plants, if you check out the support system, we have these tissues arranged in rings of this nature. Now, the very tissue that is responsible for carrying all these is the tissue known as xylem. Because why? Xylem is a vascular tissue which conducts water and mineral salts from the roots to the leaves and the rest of the plants. So when you check out in the textbook transport system and mechanism, so under plants you're going to find out that that is what the xylem is. And from that definition you can see that it falls with the statement that is made in this question, that the plant tissue that carries water and mineral salts is the xylem. And that makes option A the right answer, because the xylem is the vascular tissue which conducts water and mineral salts from the roots of the plant to the leaves and the rest of the parts of the plant. And that makes option A the right answer. Thank you. Welcome. Let's look at this JAMB past questions biology 2018. Question number 25. In which of the following organisms would glycogen be stored? A. Spirogyra, B. Chlamydomonas, C. Rattus, D. Magnifera. Now, whenever you are talking about glycogen, you're going to put into context the type of organism that is likely to have glycogen. You know that Spirogyra will not be having it. Chlamydomonas, all these are unicellular organisms, and it's not likely that they are going to have these. Now, Rattus is the botanical, or you can call it binomial nomenclature of rats. So when you hear the word Rattus, it's simply rat. Now, the rat is an animal. This Rattus that we are looking at here is actually rat, and it is an animal. And in animals, we all know that in animals, glucose is converted to glycogen. That's what happens in animal. You have glucose being converted to what? Glycogen, and stored in the muscles. So once you convert glucose to glycogen, you can store it in the muscles of animals. That's what happens. This occurs when insulin promotes glucose conversion into glycogen. So you have an enzyme known as insulin that helps this to happen. So when this conversion is done, then glycogen can be stored in liver or muscle cells. So you can store them in muscles and liver cells. So that is what happens in animals. And the animal here that can do this is Rattus, which I told you is also rat. You understand? So you can have the conversion of glucose into glycogen to be stored in the muscles through the help. The conversion is done through the help of enzyme known as insulin. And that's why C is the right answer for this. Thank you. Welcome. Let's look at this JAMB past questions biology 2018. Question number 26. A distinguishing feature of mammals is the possession of A. Skin, B. Scale, C. Nail, D. Hair. So what is that characteristics that mammals have that other organisms don't have? Now, for us to be able to understand this quite well, we need to look at the characteristics of mammals. The characteristics of mammals. What are those features that mammals have? It actually includes the hair, one. Number two, mammals are warm-blooded. Mammals are warm-blooded, unlike the amphibians and reptiles that are cold-blooded. Number three, mammals have skin, and their skin has sweat and sebaceous glands. You know about this, the sweat and sebaceous gland. So that is another characteristic of mammals. Then number four, there is possession of different types of teeth. Mammals possess different types of teeth. The dentition, very, very important. Possession of different types. Please, this is teeth. Possession of different types of teeth, which each carrying out a specific function. Then finally, we have that mammals possess external ears called pinna. Possession of external ears. So these are all features of mammal, but which of them that is they have that other animals don't have? You're going to find out that is the hair. Some animals have four, but you look at the hair, the mammals have hair. The type of hair that you see on mammal, like human beings and monkeys, you see that is very different from what you can see in every other organism. So the right option here is D. You can see other organisms having nail. You can see others having scale. Mammal and most organisms have skin. But you see this here is a distinguishing feature of mammals. The position of this hair is a distinguishing feature of mammals. And that makes option D the correct answer. Thank you. Let's look at these JAMB past questions, Biology 2018. Question number 27. Which of the following relationships involves only one organism? A. Saprophytism. B. Commensalism. C. Parasitism. D. Symbiosis. Now, all these are relationships. In symbiosis, you have one organism in a relationship with another one, both of them benefiting from each other. So that's what you have in a symbiosis. In a parasitism, you have organism in a relationship with another organism. One will be benefiting, whereas one is losing. In commensalism, we also have two organisms in a relationship. One is benefiting, then the other one is neither losing nor benefiting. You see, it's neither losing nor benefiting. Whereas in saprophytism, you have organisms that feed on dead and decaying things. So this one, you're having only one organism involved. This one is normally two. This one is two. This one is two. But in this case, in symbiosis, the two organisms are benefiting. In parasitism, one is benefiting, one is losing. In commensalism, one is benefiting, one is neither losing nor benefiting. Whereas in saprophytism, we have organisms feeding on dead and decaying. That's what saprophytism is all about. Ability of certain organisms to live in dead and decaying organic matter. So this one, you talk about an organism living in a dead or decaying organic matter. So example of organisms that do these saprophytism, we were talking about the fungi, we are talking about some bacteria, talking about Indian pipe plants and the rest of them. So the one that actually involves just one organism here is saprophytism, and that's why A is the answer. Thank you. Welcome. Let's look at these JAMB past questions, Biology 2018. Question number 28. Etiolation is caused by the influence of A. Mineral salts, B. Water, C. Carbon dioxide, D. Light. So what do you think cause the very phenomenon known as etiolation? So first of all, we need to understand what etiolation is for us to be able to know what causes it. Now, etiolation is a process. Etiolation is a process in flowering plants. So this etiolation actually happens in flowering plants. So it's a process in flowering plants, and this happens whenever these flowering plants are grown in partial whenever you grow a flowering plant in partial or complete absence of light, then you have etiolation. So the growing of flowering plants in partial or complete absence of light gives what we call etiolation. And this etiolation is characterized by, how do you know that something is suffering from etiolation? How do you know that a flowering plant is suffering from etiolation? When you have long, weak stems. So whenever the flowering plant is having long, weak stems, then you know that it is suffering from etiolation. Another symptom is what? Yellowish leaves. When the plant is having yellowish leaves, then it's suffering from etiolation. Another symptom is what? Smaller leaves. When it's having smaller leaves due to longer internodes. Smaller leaves due to longer internodes. Then you know that it is also having etiolation. So etiolation has something to do with light, actually. Partial or complete absence of light. And it can lead to symptoms like long, weak stems, yellowish leaves, and smaller leaves due to longer internodes. So option D is the right answer. Thank you. Let's look at this JAMB past question for biology 2018. Question number 29. What is the function of the contractile vacuole in Paramecium? A. Produces enzymes. B. Gets rid of excreta. C. Stores and digests food. D. Gets rid of excess water. E. Controls movement. Now, we already know from our knowledge of the excretory systems and mechanism. Now, if we have the Paramecium, there is the contractile vacuole here. This contractile vacuole, the function is to get rid of excess water. That's what it does. It gets rid of excess water. That's the work of the contractile vacuole. So it's one of the parts of the Paramecium, and the function is to get rid of excess water. So D is the correct answer to this. Getting rid of excess water is the main function of the contractile vacuole in Paramecium. So option D is the right answer. Thank you. Welcome. Let's look at this JAMB past questions, biology 2018. Question number 30. What would happen if solution Y is more concentrated than solution X in Fig 2? This is the Fig 2. This is solution Y, and inside this is solution X, and it is covered by a semi-permeable membrane. So what will happen if solution Y is more concentrated than solution X in this figure? A, the level of X would rise, Y would fall. B, the level of X would rise, Y would rise. C, the level of X and Y would stay the same. D, the level of Y would rise, X would fall. Now, whenever you have two solutions separated by a semi-permeable membrane, then you have what we call osmosis happening. And if osmosis is happening, what actually happens in osmosis? So osmosis actually is the movement of solvent molecules, from a strong solution to a weak solution. to a weak solution. That's what happens in osmosis. Movement from strong solution to a weak solution through a permeable membrane. Through a what? Permeable membrane. Or you call it through a selectively permeable membrane. So that's what happens in osmosis. From a what? Strong solution to a weak one. And here we have that Y is strong. So this Y is strong. So there will be movement from this Y into this X that is weaker. So that will make X to rise. So level of X will rise, whereas Y is going to fall. That makes A the correct answer to this problem. Thank you. Let's look at these JAMB past questions, Biology 2018. Question number 31. In the transverse section of the leaf of maize, vascular bundles are arranged in A row, B, one cycle, C, alternate positions, D, two cycles. So how do you arrange, or how is vascular bundles, how are vascular bundles arranged in the leaf of a maize, in particular the transverse section? How are they arranged in the leaf of a maize? Now, from the diagrams of the vascular bundle of a maize, we find out that they are arranged in one circle, knowing fully well that maize is a monocot plant. So it appears to have the vascular bundle arranged in one circle. So for a maize, which is a monocot, we have the vascular bundle arranged in one cycle. So that is how you do that is how the arrangement is done. That is the transverse section of the leaf of a maize. The vascular bundles are arranged in one cycle. So option number B is the right answer. This you can see under transport system in plants. If you check the transport system in plants, you'll be able to see this. So the right option is B. Thank you. Welcome. Let's look at these JAMB past questions. Biology 2018. Question number 32. The hormones secreted at IV serve to A. facilitate the development of facial hairs, B. raise the level of calcium ions in the blood, C. lower blood glucose level, D. make body react to emergencies. Now, for us to understand this, we need to know about the endocrine system. We need to know about the endocrine system, which is actually the system that controls the hormones. And in the endocrine system, we know about the pituitary gland that is located around here. Pituitary gland or the pineal gland. Both of them located around here. Then here we have the thyroid gland. Thyroid gland. That is what is located in 2. This is in 1. Then in 3 we know the adrenal gland. We know that this is the adrenal gland and is having the pancreatic hormones and the rest of them. But here is where we have the testes for male, which which is also where we have the testosterone. And this testosterone helps in secreting the sexual hormones. And the other thing that it does is that it facilitates the development of facial hairs. That's the second thing it does. So you have actually the testosterone here, and one of the function is to facilitate the development of facial hairs, especially in males, which is where we have the testes. So that makes option A the correct answer to this problem. Thank you. Let's look at these JAMB past questions, Biology 2018. Question number 33. The greatest amount of energy will be obtained by the oxidation of 100 kg of A, meat, B, butter, C, sugar, D, biscuits. Now, for us to be able to understand this and put it in context, we are going to ask ourselves, what kind of food do we get the highest energy from? Is it from carbohydrates? What class of food do we have the best energy from? Is it carbohydrates? Is it protons? Is it fats and oil? Now, if we look at these various types, we know that the meat is a protein, butter is fats and oil, biscuit is carbohydrates as well as sugar. So which one do we get the highest energy from? We all know that we get the best energy from fats and oil, so that makes butter the right option. But following that, we also understand that the energy value of food is expressed in calories. We express the energy values of food in calories or kilojoules. And this is the amount of energy available in 1 gram of a particular food substance. So conventionally, you have that 1 kg of lipid. Whenever you hear the word lipid, we mean fats and oil. Use about 37.6 kilojoule of energy, which is significantly more compared to that released by carbohydrates. So we have fats and oil releasing this per 1 kg or per 1 gram actually, not 1 kg, 1 gram. Whereas 1 gram of carbohydrate releases about 16.7 kilojoule. And 1 gram of protein releases about 16.7 as well. You understand? So we have actually that lipid releases the highest amount of energy. And that makes butter the right answer to this. Thank you. Hello, welcome. Let's look at these JAMB past questions, Biology 2018. Question number 34. A state in Nigeria that is most susceptible to desert encroachment is A. Kwara, B. Taraba, C. Kaduna, D. Katsina. Now, for us to be able to understand this and answer it accurately, we need to know that the states that should be susceptible to desert encroachment has to have a weather that is dry and with hot temperature and encourages low vegetation. So which of the following states has such weather? We all know that Kwara is around, if this is Nigeria, okay, let me draw the map let me draw something that looks like the map of Nigeria. This is the map of Nigeria, and here is the east, where we have the Igbo people, and here is the west, where we have the Yorubas, and here is the north, where we have the houses. We know that we have Kwara states around here. And we have Kaduna around here. And we have Taraba around here. And then we have Katsina around here. And we know that the northern part of Nigeria is where we have low vegetation, where we could have desert encroachment. Down these other areas, especially here where we have the rainforest region, there is lesser likelihood of desert encroachment. But in Katsina is said to be within the Sahel savanna. So this area where Katsina is known as the Sahel savanna. So this is the Sahel savanna region. The Sahel savanna is a vegetation that is characterized by low. This Sahel savanna is characterized by low vegetation or low vegetation growth. You understand? And there is also, because of what causes this low vegetation growth is actually because this area has low rainfall as well as high temperature. So there is high temperature in this area and there is low rainfall, and this causes low vegetation. And because there is low vegetation, there is this susceptibility to desert encroachment, and that makes Katsina D the right answer to this problem. Thank you. Welcome. Let's look at these JAMB past questions, biology 2018. Question number 35. Use the diagram below to answer questions 35 and 36. Transverse section of a fowl egg. That is what this diagram represents. The young chick is formed from A, 3, B, 3 and 4, C, 1, 3 and 5, D, 2. So where is it that the young chick is formed from? It is from 2, which is the embryo. Very, very important. So this transaction, this 2 represents the embryo. And it's actually from the embryo that you have the young chick formed from. So from the embryo, you can have the young chick, which is the organism, grow from. So here is the right point, which is 2, and that makes option D the right answer to this problem. Thank you. Welcome. Let's look at this question number 36 for JAMB past questions, biology 2018. Use the diagram below to answer questions 35 and 36. This is question 36. This is the diagram, the transverse section of a fowl egg. Which parts provide food for the developing chick? Is it A, 2 and 3, B, 4 and 5, C, 3 and 4, D, 2 and 5. So which part provides the food? You can see here you have 2, which is the embryo. You have 3, which we can see from here. We have 4 or 4, the abdomen. We also have 5, we have 6. So which part provides the food? The abdomen, also known as the egg white, provides food, mainly proteins and salts and water. You understand? Whereas the yolk, which is 3, this number 3 is the yolk. So for us to be able to answer this, we need to analyze this and really know what they are. We all know that the food is formed, the young one is formed from the previous question, is formed here, which is where the embryo is. You understand? Which is where the embryo is. Now we have this number 3 here is the yolk. You understand? This 3 here is the yolk. As we know, this 3 is the yolk. Then this 4 is the albumin, which is the egg white. This 4 is the albumin, which is the egg white. You understand? So this albumin, which is 4, and this 3, which is yolk, the 2 of them combine to provide the food. Mainly protons and salts. You understand? They give the developing chick protein and what? Salts. As well as water. And with this, the developing chick can grow effectively. So it's better we understand this in perspective. So these 2 things supplies this embryo at the middle, the 2, enough food for it to develop. So that makes option C the right answer for this, because option C is having 3 and 4, which is the yolk and the albumin. Thank you. Let's look at this question number 37 for JAMB Past Question Biology 2018. Use the diagram below to answer questions 37 and 38. This is the diagram showing the life cycle of tapeworm. At which stage in this cycle can man be infected? A, 2, B, 4, C, 5, D, 6. So at which stage in this can man be infected? For us to be able to understand this and answer it correctly, we need to know what is involved in the life cycle of a tapeworm. Now if you have a tapeworm, this first stage represents actually, the first stage represents when human ingests raw or uncooked pork containing cysticary. So that's what happens in this first place. The injection of raw or undercooked pork. So whenever you eat raw or undercooked pork, then you will have to have these. That's the stage here is. So stage number 2 here is what we call in the intestine, where the cystaceae mature into adult, attaching to the wall of their scolex. So there is maturity of the I have to call this the cysticerci. So let me write the spelling. Cysticerci. So this is where it was ingested. This is where it matures and attaches itself to the wall of the scolex. So moving forward, here we have the adult one forming. So the adult one forms here. And this is where it becomes infectious to man. That's what happens there. So this other place, the eggs develop into what we call oncospheres, which penetrate the intestinal wall. That is what happens in 5. Then finally here, you have the oncosphere circulate to muscles and other organs and develop into cysticerci again. So that is what happens here in this cycle. So you find out that when it becomes infectious is at this 4, which is B, becomes infectious to man at that level. Thank you. Welcome. Let's look at the JAMB past questions, biology 2018. Question number 38. Use the diagram below to answer questions 37 and 38. This is the diagram of the life cycle of tapeworm. Which stage is found in the muscle of infected pig? A, 3, B, 4, C, 5, D, 6. So is it stage 3, stage 4, stage 5, or stage 6? Which stage do you find in the muzzle of infected pig? In the previous video about question number 37, I was able to explain the stages that we have from where the meat uncooked or half cooked or raw pork is taken. Once you take it in, then the time it gets attached to the walls, then down to where man start getting infested. You understand? Then down to where it starts moving in the bloodstream to this point. So before you start getting infected, you're gonna have it in the muscles and in other parts of the body. So here, which stage is found in the muscle of infected pig? So when is it that the pigs starts getting the infection from this tapeworm in the life cycle? Now, it's very important that we know that 2 hosts are involved in pigs. We talk about the primary host and the secondary host. So whenever you talk about the life cycle of a tapeworm, we talk about the primary host and the secondary host. Where the primary host, you can talk about pig and cow, whereas the secondary host, you talk about man. So in this scheme, we'll talk about the eggs taken up by the primary host during grazing. You understand? The eggs are taken up by the primary host during grazing. So things like pig and cow get the egg when they are grazing. The eggs develop into embryo with 6 hooks and covered with protective shells. Now at this stage, it adheres to the muscles of the primary host. So that is when it adheres to the muscles of the primary host. And the primary host, here we're talking about the pigs. So when it starts developing hooks, like I said, 6 hooks, that is when it starts getting attached to the primary host. So you can see that this stage 3 is likely going to be the place where, or is the stage where it gets attached to the muzzle of the infected pig. So because we say that at this stage it adheres to the muzzle of the primary host. Now, when this very meat is improperly cooked, now you find out that and it is eaten. Since it's in the muzzle of the primary host, it's now eaten by man. You know, understand? The man starts playing host as a secondary host this time around. So they further develop into this secondary host, which is man. This digestive juice of the secondary host removes the protective layer around these very the eggs, so that you will now have the embryos then are born through the intestinal wall of the secondary host that carry them. So that is actually what goes around in this cycle of life cycle of tapeworm. So option number 3 is the right answer to this. Thank you. welcome. Let's look at these JAMB past questions, Biology 2018. Question number 40. Which of the labeled tissues is responsible for the transport of mineral salts and water in a living plant? Now, checking out this diagram, we have option A, 1, B, 2, C, 3, D, 4. Now, we need to understand the transverse section of the tissues of the plants for us to be able to appreciate this very well. So to do that, we have basically we have the xylem and the phloem. The phloems. So here in the middle, you have the xylems. Then surrounded very closely by the phloem cells. Then you have what we call the pericycle. You understand? So that's what you have. So that is what you have. So you have what we call the xylem, which is actually what is responsible for transport of mineral salts and water. We have the phloem. Then we have these what? Pericycle. Now the combination of these three is known as steel. You understand? So that's actually what you have. Now surrounding this lightly, we have the what we call the endodermis, which is very well closed up by the cortex. The support closing this steel is known as the cortex. You understand? Then you have the epidermis. Covering of this cortex is the what? Is the epidermis. Now, after the epidermis, you now talk about the root hairs, which is the last thing here, the root hair. So this is the transverse section of the tissues. Now, the function of this xylem, which is what you can be seen as the number 3 in this rough sketch here, is to transport mineral salts and water in living plants. So that makes the 3 the answer to the problem. You understand? But take note that you have the other parts of the tissue. You have the epidermis, you have the endodermis, the pericycle, the xylem, the phloem, the cortex. So, but this very point that is being tossed here is known as the xylem, which is the part that does the responsibility or the function of transport of mineral salts and water in living plants. Thank you. Hello, welcome. Let's look at JAMB past questions for Biology 2018. As you can notice, the correct answers, I marked them in red. Please, if you like our videos, make sure you hit the subscribe button by this side of the video so that anytime we drop a new video, you'll be the first to know and watch them. Please, you can support our channel in any way that you can. Check out the description part of this video to see how you can donate to us to help us keep moving. If you have any questions and concerns, please drop it on the comment section. So now let's start with the number 1 question. The excretory organ in insects is the A. Kidney, B. Mammalian tubule, C. phloem cell, D. nephridium. So the answer is Mammalian tubule, and you can see these under excretory system in your biology textbook, whether you're using modern biology or any biology textbook. Under excretory systems, you're going to see the various excretory organs for the various animals or living things, and you will notice that the excretory organ for insects is Mammalian tubule. Now let's get to the second question. Cold-blooded animals are referred to as poikilothermic. So poikilotherms are the cold-blooded animals. So another word for cold-blooded animal is poikilotherm or they are said to be poikilothermic, and it has to do with how they control their body temperature as against the environment. So cold-blooded animals are referred to as A. poikilothermic, B. homothermic, C. polythermic, D. homeostatic. So the answer is A. poikilothermic. Number 3, the greatest amount of energy will be obtained by the oxidation of 100 kg of A. meat, B. butter, C. sugar, D. biscuit. So the answer is D. biscuits. Why? Because carbohydrates have large amount of energy. That is the reason for that. Now let's look at number 4 question. A state in Nigeria that is most susceptible to desert encroachment is A. Kwara, B. Taraba, C. Kaduna, D. natural selection. It's very clear that it should be Taraba, B, because the region is not actually in the rainforest region where we have multiple rain falling. So Taraba is most susceptible to desert encroachment. Now let's look at number 5 question. Long neck in giraffe is used to illustrate the theory of A. use and disuse, B. origin of species, C. origin of life, D. natural selection. The answer is A. use and disuse, because we know in the theory of use and disuse, as the very organ or part of the body is continually used for something, it tends to modify to suit the use. So A is the answer. Now let's carry on. Number 6. The hormone secreted at 4 serves to, actually this question has to do with the diagram, so I'm gonna let it go. Well, let me just go through it. The hormone secreted at IV serves to A. facilitate the development of facial hairs, B. raise the level of calcium ions in the blood, C. lower blood glucose level, D. make the body react to emergencies. So it has to do with neuron ability for the body to react to emergencies, the neurons and other things. So let's look at number 7. At fertilization, what happens at fertilization? Number 7, at fertilization, A. one chromosome from the male joins another from the female. B. one gene from the male combines with another from the female. C. the male nucleus fuses with the female nucleus. D. one set of chromosomes combines with another set from the female. So the answer is clearly C. The male nucleus fuses with the female nucleus to form the baby or the embryo at the initial stages. Now number 8, which of the following is an organ? A. Gourd cell, B. liver, C. Xylem bundle, D. blood. So you know the major classification of complexity, where we have cell, we have tissue, we have organ, and we have system. So gourd cell is cell, we have the blood, we have the xylems, but the liver is the organ. So other ones are either cells or tissue, so we should be able to get through to this. The liver is an organ, so that's why B is the answer. So, and you can see this under classification in complexity, from cell to tissue to organ and then to system. Here we have secretory systems, that's combination of organs. The organ is combination of tissues, and the tissue is actually combination of the cells. So from the cells to the tissue, from tissue to organ, then from organ to system. Now let's look at this. What is the function of trichocyst in Paramecium? A. Movement. B. Defense. C. Excretion. D. Reproduction. So the trichocyst is used for defense by the Paramecium. So the answer is B. So let's move on to number 10. If a child can receive blood from all donors, he belongs to the blood group A, O, B, A, C, B, D, AB. The answer is blood group O, A. Option A, that's the answer, because if your blood group is O, you can actually receive blood from all donors, whether the person donating blood to you is A, O, B, AB, or any of them. Now let's get to number 11 question. Which of the following animals is cold-blooded? Is it cat? Is it lizard? Is it whale? Is it bird? Well, I have to leave this through. Not really sure of that lizard. Number 12. An example of radially symmetric animal is A. Planaria, B. Hydra, C. Tapeworm, D. Roundworm. The answer is Hydra. Hydra is a radially symmetrical organism. So I'm going to be stopping here for now. In subsequent videos, I'm going to take you down, make some corrections, and we follow through. I'm going to scroll the questions so that you can see them and see the likely answers that I've given. So you can pause this video at any point and study it very well. This number 13, this number 14. Get to look at them very well. Pick out your answers. Check also with the answers that are provided. The young chick is from the checking the diagrams as given. So I'm gonna allow you to look through them. I'm taking a cup of tea. Yeah. So check through the questions. An increase in air pressure in the lungs is due to the A. Increase in the volume of the thoracic cavity, B. Upward movement of the rib, C. Relaxation of the diaphragm, D. Contraction of the intercostal muscles. The answer is C. Relaxation of the diaphragm. 20. An example of endospermous seed is A. Cotton seed, B. Bean seed, C. Maize grain, D. Cashew nut. Answer here is bean seed. The movement of the whole organism in to an external stimulus is termed A. Tropism, B. A taxis, C. A nastic movement, D. A phototropic movement. It is actually a tactic movement. Now get to number 22. Physiological adaptation to a very dry condition in animals demonstrates what? A. Xeromorphism, B. Hibernation, C. Estivation, D. Rejuvenation. The answer is C. Estivation. 23. A group of organisms of different species living in a particular area is described as A. Colony, B. Community, C. Population, D. Niche. B. Community is the answer. A pollutant that mostly associated with the acid rain is, it has to be something related to nitrogen 4 oxide, B. Ozone, D. Fluorine, D. Carbon 4 oxide. The answer is nitrogen 4 oxide. 25. The vitamin which is important in the formation of the retina pigment is A, vitamin A, B, vitamin B, C, vitamin C, D, vitamin D? The answer is A, vitamin A. The hygrometer is used for measuring A, relative humidity, B, specific gravity, C, rainfall, D, salinity. The answer is A, specific or relative humidity. 27. Double fertilization is a unique feature of A, angiosperm, B, bryophytes, C, pteridophytes, A, algae. Double fertilization is a unique feature for angiosperms. Let's look at 28. An organism which exhibits extracellular digestion is A, Spirogyra, B, Paramecium, C, amoeba, D, Rhizopus. The answer is D, Rhizopus. Now let's look at 29. The hepatic portal vein is unique because it A, carries the oxygenated blood, B, begins and ends with capillaries, C, is the largest vein in the mammals, D, carries digested food. Answer is B, begins and ends with capillaries. Now let's look at 30. Circulation is in a mammal is said to be double because A, it passes twice through the heart in a complete circuit. B, it moves in both arteries and veins. C, it circulates in both the heart and other organs. D, the heart contains ventricles and ventricles. Answer is A, it passes twice through the heart in a complete circuit. 31. Mineral salts can be absorbed into the roots by A, osmosis only, B, osmosis and diffusion, C, diffusion and active transport, D, imbibition only. So obtain mineral salts through the roots by diffusion and active transport. 32. The egg of a bird, the embryo, is located in the A, shalazar, B, yolk, C, abdomen, D, embryo disc, B, yolk. 33. In the root vascular system, the stele is directly surrounded by the A, pericycle, B, cortex, C, endodermis, D, parenchyma. The answer is C, cortex. So those are those. I'm going to scroll through. You can pause at any moment to check through. I'm going to look at the last one. What is the function of the contractile vacuole? Is contractile vacuole. There's V here. In Paramecium, what is the function? A, produces enzyme, get rid of excreta, stores and digests food, get rid of excess water, controls movement. I need to check this out to be sure before I pull up the final answer for you for this question 40 in the comment section. Please, if you have any questions and concerns, let's look at this question together, find out the final answers, and get to it. The ones that I did not make a note of getting to letter are correct. Other ones I'm going to look through again and get back to you. Thank you. God bless you. Please check through the questions, get acquainted with them. If you have any questions, you can ask me in the comment section. I'm going to be leaving us here for now. You can pause the video at any time and get to have a closer look at the question. Thank you and God bless you. Please hit the subscribe button. If you have any questions and concerns, drop it in the comment section. Thank you and God bless you.